Днешният ни гост познава войната отвътре. МАТЮ ХО служи като офицер от морската пехота в Ирак, след което работи за Държавния департамент в Афганистан, докато през 2009 година подава оставка с публично писмо, в което заявява, че американската мисия там няма нито цел, нито смисъл. Жестът му го превръща в рядко явление американски официален и служител, който е избрал съвестта пред кариерата. От тогава МАТЮ ХО проследява и анализира как Вашингтон продава войните си с едни и същи думи пред едно и също мълчаливо общество понякога. Преди месец той предупреди в свои статии, че войната с Иран идва, че ще се повторят манипулациите от Ирак и че истинската цел може да не е Техеран на западния бряг. И събитията може би го потвърдиха, може би не. Матю днес е старши сътрудник в Eisenhower Media Network и един от най-последователните наблюдатели на американската военна политика на Близкия изток. Много се радвам, че сте с нас. Good to see you, Matthew.
Thank you, Constantine. I appreciate you having me join you.
Exactly 18 or 19 days ago, the US and Israel struck Iran. Nuclear negotiations had been advancing before that. Oman's mediator was speaking of a breakthrough. How do you explain now, after those 19 days, the decision to attack at the precise moment when diplomacy appeared closest to success?
Right, you know, and there's also as well the story as reported by The Guardian, as told by Britain's National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, essentially corroborating what the Omani foreign minister was saying, was that Powell didn't go into the details, but he said that, you know, the talks were progressing. The Iranians had put forward proposals. There wasn't a deal at hand, but certainly the idea of a deal being possible was very much evidenced by the way the talks were going. As well as too, we've heard other things from members of Gulf states who took part, again, corroborating this notion that these discussions were moving along, that there was good faith being demonstrated by the Iranians, that they were putting forward proposals, and not just proposals, but they were conceding things. They were offering concessions. They were offering aspects of zero stockpiling of enriched uranium, down blending their uranium they had already enriched. I mean, like different things that maybe a few months ago you wouldn't think had been possible. And then what we had was the war, as you said. I think there are two things. I think the start of the war, the actual day it happened, was a consequence of the American and Israeli intelligence services saying, now's the time that we can be assured of getting Ayatollah Khamenei. I think that was the reason why the war happened that day. And you can look and you could make assessments and analysis that the American military wasn't fully prepared yet for the war, that they probably needed another couple of weeks, a few weeks, but yeah.
But he has been killed. Larijani has been killed. The chain of command is shattered. Yet Iran has declared readiness for a long war and keeps striking. Is it because of unpreparedness of the U.S. military, as you said? Is the goal of regime change even realistic, or are we really repeating the mistakes of Libya and Iraq?
I think some of those repetition of mistakes may be purposeful. One thing just to finish up with the negotiations, right? This idea that the Americans didn't want negotiations, or that the negotiations were a ploy to provide cover or justification for war. That you offer the negotiations, you take part of them, you have no interest in actually seeing them being successful, and then when they fail or you pull out of them because you stay, they weren't working, then you have your justification for war. With regards to how well prepared the Americans were, I think we could see that juxtaposed to how well prepared the Iranians were for this war. Not just in terms of material and ships and aircraft and missiles and things like that, but the leadership The Iranians have established clear objectives for this war, essentially establishing a deterrence so that such a war cannot happen again, make this war so costly, not just to the United States and Israel, and not just to the region, but to the entire world, that this war could not happen again. And they have a strategy in place that they are executing that can achieve those objectives. And then you look at the American and the Israeli side, and you don't see that clear detailing of objectives, particularly from the Americans. We're not really sure what the Americans are going to achieve here. If Donald Trump wants to declare victory, what are the standards, what are the metrics, what are the goals he's going to use to justify that victory? Now, Donald Trump, of course, will do whatever he wants to do. And as we're talking here, he could be writing up a social media message announcing the war is over and the U.S. has won. Now, whether or not the Iranians would agree to that is a whole other aspect of this. And this is what makes this war so confounding for the Americans, how the Americans have really put themselves in a difficult place here, because the Iranians have shown that planning and preparation. They have shown, we can go into more details on this, but they have shown that they have strategic patience. You look at how they're conducting this war compared to the two iterations of conflict and the 12-day war last year. So that the two iterations of conflict with Israel and Iran in 2024, and then of course the 12-day war last year. You know, and then you look at the way Iran has been able to take the initiative immediately. And, you know, I mean, so you have this ability of the Iranians to carry out a war on a timeline that they want. And I think also timing wise, the longer this goes, the more it falls into Iran's favor, essentially because their strongest weapon is economic warfare. And the longer this goes, the greater the pressure from that economic warfare will be, not just in the region, but the entire world. And that's how they feel they can achieve their objective. So you see a certain sense, a certain of sanity, right? A certain, there's a reason, there's a rationale, there's a well-defined objectives. It's articulated, and they're able to carry out a plan to achieve those objectives. And then you look at the Americans, and now we're back to this question of regime change. And I think this idea that the plan, if there was one, and this is so much a strategy of hope, if you will, by the Americans here, was that Khamenei was going to be killed. Other leaders throughout the government were going to be killed. They killed a heck of a lot of political and military and intelligence figures in the first few days of this war, the Americans and Israelis. And that, just like as in Venezuela, it would essentially be a turnkey operation. And the Iranian government would essentially pledge loyalty to the United States, and that would be it. It would be over. And after day 4, when it became clear that that wasn't going to happen, then it shifted to the next aspect of this well, what will happen is we will cause chaos. We will cause such a vacuum of power. We will degrade the Iranian military and security services, and the government will lose control of the country. There will be sectarian uprisings. A power vacuum will occur, and then essentially we'll have a civil war in Iran. It will become to resemble, if not become, a failed state, a la Iraq, or a la Libya and Syria. And if we can't get regime change, this is the Americans and Israelis thinking, then at least we can make Iran into a failed state. And then, of course, Iran cannot interfere in the region. It can't resist Israeli or American hegemony. It's too busy concentrating on itself, et cetera. I think that's the strategy that they have now, but it really is a strategy of hope, hoping all these things come together. And I think there are also some in the American military, in both the United States and Israel, who believe that this could become this is a winnable war of attrition. That is simply, if they continue to bomb and strike Iran, that eventually Iran will give up. I mean, that's ridiculous if you know anything about the Iranians, but I think there are those in the United States and Israel who believe that is actually a pathway to victory.
But you warned about this economic time bomb. Effectively, the Strait of Hormuz is now closed. Oil has broken $100 a barrel. Over probably more than 150 tankers are sitting at anchor. Do you believe, first, that Washington underestimated this risk or considered it acceptable collateral damage? And secondly, Is this a strategy or a sign that Washington has lost control of its own military adventure?
I think what you had, and this has been advanced by sources from the Pentagon, saying that, yes, it was always a question of whether or not the Iranians would close the Straits of Hormuz. In our war games, we would model this, but essentially we believe that it would be too damaging for the Iranians, and that so they wouldn't do it. That the self-harm the Iranians would inflict on themselves by closing the straits would mean that they wouldn't do it themselves. I don't know why these people never just thought that maybe the Iranians will close it for certain people and keep it open from themselves and for their friends. I don't know why that never came. It was something that was brought up. But you have to understand the culture that exists, right? The hubris, the intellectual and moral corruption that is resident within the American empire. Particularly overly politicized American military, where bringing up such things, asking uncomfortable questions, being inconvenient in your planning, saying things that your boss doesn't want you to hear is not the way to advance through the ranks. And so what you have is you have a coterie of yes men and women. You have an atmosphere or an environment that doesn't like contradiction. And that welcomes and rewards excessive optimism. I mean, we saw this in the Vietnam War. You go back and you read the accounts of what it was like in the Pentagon during the Vietnam War. What it was like in the Pentagon in both the Iraq and the Afghan wars, whether it was the Bush administration or the Obama administration. I can tell you from direct experience that there was a certainty, a positivity, an optimism in both the Bush and the Obama administrations for the Iraq War and then for the escalation of the Afghan War by the Obama administration, that was incredibly unreasonable. But to be contradictory, to be not going along with the spirit, all right, to be someone who is willing to displease the boss, simply there is no space for that. And so that's how you had planning for Iraq that said the war, we would only need. I remember I was a junior Marine Corps officer in the Secretary of Navy's office in the summer of 2003, so fairly junior person in a high level position. And, seeing the plans in the summer of 2003 that by September of 2003, the United States would only have 30,000 troops in Iraq. And this was, say, in July, when things were going poorly. And, anyone who looked at it objectively or neutrally or with any degree of professionalism would say, this is all trending in the wrong way. But the Department of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld's office, was insistent that things were going well and that by end of the summer, there would only be 30,000 troops there, right? And if you contradicted that, well, again, you were going to be, at best, shut out of the meetings and quite possibly hurt your career. And the same thing I can tell you for the escalation of the Afghan war in 2009 by the Obama administration. And, and again, it's about Vietnam. You could talk about even just recently, both the Biden and Trump administrations' attempts to take the Red Sea back from the Houthis. And the particularly the Trump administration's attempt after the Biden administration have failed. So just there, I think what you're seeing here with this lack of preparation, the planning, the hubris that is so evident, I think that is just a characteristic. It's endemic of what the American empire has become. And I think you find that if you look at previous empires, the life cycle of empires, this is what often happens. As an empire starts to go into decline, as it starts to fail, this type of reliance on its own narrative, its belief in its own mythology dominates. And so any type of actually, yeah.
This is interesting because if America's wars, because you talk about empires, if America's wars are driven not by corporations, not by the Israel lobby, not by Democrats or Republicans, but by the imperial nature of the American state itself, if that's true, how can this war ever be stopped when the driving force is structural?
That's a really excellent question. And that's a really deep concern and grave concern. I actually just wrote something for a group just before I came on with you addressing this, that if you don't get to the core structure, as you just described it, Constantine, of the American empire, if you don't deal with the reality of our history, the inertia that comes from 250 years of being an empire, I mean, there is this conceit in the United States that the United States is not an empire. And there are some who will offer that the United States became an empire only after World War II. Or that it only began with Teddy Roosevelt around the turn of the 19th century, 20th century, with McKinley and Roosevelt and the Spanish-American War. I mean, all those things are incomplete. The reality is the United States has been an empire since before it was a country. The westward expansion by the colonists that was being precluded, being prevented by the British government, by the Crown, starting in 1763, was a chief grievance for the colonists in the revolution against the British. It's in our Declaration of Independence, this grievance, that you're not letting us go westward and take this land from the Indians, essentially. And then you see that is what dominates the American imperial vision for much of the 19th century. And then it should be no coincidence. It's not a coincidence, and people should understand that 1893 is the year that Horace Greeley, the famous American journalist, declares the American frontier closed. Essentially, the last Native American tribe had been subjugated by the American federal government. 1893 is also the year that American Marines, on the behalf of sugar plantation owners in Hawaii, overthrow the royal government in Hawaii. Right? So as soon as the United States finishes its conquest of this continent, it then immediately begins conquest overseas. Right? And so it's always been an empire. That inertia there, the institutions that have manifested because of its imperial nature, whether that be a country like Israel, whether it be things like the military-industrial complex, whether it be the political aspirations and lusts of politicians, those are all true. And so absolutely, the Israelis are a huge reason for this war. The military-industrial complex, the fossil fuel industry, certain American politicians like Lindsey Graham are a reason for this war. Other things as well, you could say, look, Iran has been a country that has been kept out of Western commerce for decades now. And so you don't think the people at Meta and Apple and Google and X aren't looking at a new 93 million person market to enter into, and they're not in favor of this war. And so all those things are true. But to me, the fundamental thing that moves all of this, and the reason why these occur, and the reasons why a country like Iran that stands up against the hegemon will always have a war like this as its fate, is because of the imperial nature of the United States.
Within this nature, how to understand what's going on within the U.S. military? I mean, is it true that there is some kind of religious nationalism? How significant is this factor in the operational decision making? And speaking about operational decision making, not operational, but decision making, people with no real expertise on Iran, like Kushner and Witkoff, what is your opinion?
Well, with, say, Jared Kushner, who is the president's son-in-law, Steve Witkoff, who is Donald Trump's longtime business partner and friend, both of these men are real estate magnates, real estate tycoons, but they have no experience. No knowledge, and what they do know is heavily influenced by the bubbles they have lived in. And in particular, you have, in this case, say with Kushner and Witkoff, a relationship with Israel that is well understood. And so their view, I think, like many Americans in Washington, D.C., is colored by a narrative, a storyline, facts, if you will, that come from an Israeli perspective. And so you have that, I think, with Witkoff and Kushner, but you also have some very troubling things being reported as well about their conduct in the negotiations, and particularly their lack of technical knowledge. This is something that Jonathan Powell, the British National Security Advisor, speaks about, how Witkoff went to Geneva to deal with the Iranians on the nuclear issue, and he brought no technical experts. And it was demonstrable that neither Witkoff or Kushner knew what they were talking about. There's one there's one story that's I've seen from multiple sources now that says that Witkoff did not understand that the Tehran research reactor could not be used to produce uranium. It just physically is impossible for such a research facility to do so. And Witkoff did not understand that. And so if you have someone who doesn't understand the basic concepts of what the negotiation revolves around, how could there ever be any success? But then again, you go back to this idea that the negotiations weren't meant to be successful. They were meant to be cover, to show that the Americans had attempted to negotiate, and then, or as well, too, to buy time for the Americans to build up their forces in the region. Now, this question about the American military and the religiosity that's in it is a serious one. And it's something that has been a concern for decades now. And certainly, as I joined the U.S. military in the late 1990s, it's already a concern. There are concerns that the religious freedom of American service members is violated by their commanders who force them to attend worship services or who just push religious information on them. And that concern existed for the last has existed for the last decades. And at times it would reach a level where you would have an American general or you know, who might say something about how the war in Iraq is a religious war. There was one American general who I'll remember his name as soon as we finished recording this, but who famously had a statement that went public where he talked about Christianity versus Islam and how his God was stronger than their God, you know. But concerns like that were on the individual level. And they were often addressed by the Department of Defense, the institution, often the chaplain corps, and were taken care of. And so it was something that was always an issue to deal with, always just like white nationalism, just like racism, just like gangs. When you recruit from society, you bring in all elements of society. But what we've had here with this administration, with this group that's in power, particularly with the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, who is an avowed Christian nationalist. You have a man leading the Pentagon who has decorated himself with Crusader iconography. He has tattoos across his body that exalt religious war, and that showing, you see the way he speaks, what he writes, again, how he tattoos himself, this identification as a holy warrior. And then, of course, you can imagine who he has brought into power with him. And so now you have this concern that where it was individual and you did have maybe a preponderance, more evangelical Christians would join the military than other groups. And so you have worries in that way. Now you have it, though, structurally. Again, it's like structural problems, right? Now how we have it where at the very top of the Pentagon, you have someone who isn't just a fan of this, who just doesn't think it's a good idea that we have more religion in the military, but who views the military as an instrument of his religion. And, you know, that also goes in line with other views that come out of the Make America Great movement, misogynist views, so homophobic views, racist views. And so what you have then is just not a desire for a Christian army, an evangelical Christian army, a crusader army, if you will, but an army that is also a white and paternalistic and Christian army in that sense. So I think for many in the top tiers of the Pentagon, including the Secretary of Defense, the idea of purging the U.S. military and creating a white Christian nationalist male-only army is something for them that is meets their visions, right? I mean, this is something that fits their worldview. You know, and they don't think that not allowing black and brown people, not allowing LGBTQ people into the service, not allowing women into the service would be of detriment to the U.S. military, but would rather strengthen it because it'd be a purer military that meets this view their religious view of the world. So it's very troubling. And in some of the comments in the last couple of weeks from Pete Hegseth, the identification of his religion with this war has also been troubling, and particularly some of the people that the Pentagon has brought in to speak to soldiers who speak in eschatological terms, end of times terms, like apocalyptic terms, right? You know, about Armageddon. You know, this is a real concern. Yeah.
The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that the United States launched preemptive strikes against Iran because they knew Israel was planning a separate attack.
Yeah.
So in a way, Rubio's comments were widely interpreted as an acknowledgement that Israeli war plans dictated the timing and necessity of U.S. military action. Why does Washington allow itself to be used this way?
Well, I think what you have is, as I said before about the American empire and the inertia that comes with it, you also have as well the reality that the American system of government is one of legalized bribery. So what you have is, as the American empire, which you can define as being at the intersection of might makes right and greed is good, as it has essentially sold off its organs to the highest bidder, it has lost its agency. So you have an empire that has all that imperial inertia, right? It still wants to maintain its primacy. It still wants to dominate. It still wants to include more countries under its wings, right? You still have that inertia, but you've lost the ability of the country, of the empire, to determine. It's almost as if it's a ship, the empire is a ship, and the sails blow it in one direction, but it's the rudder that steers it into which port, right? And so in this case, the rudder, in terms of Middle Eastern policy for the United States, has been given to the highest bidder, which is Israel, which understands an American system of legalized bribery makes decisions for the U.S. government. And that's not the Israelis that have determined that. They've only been smart enough to utilize it. That goes for a host of interests, a host of institutions in the United States that control the policies that affect them. It's just that the Israelis have done it in foreign policy where you've not seen other countries able to do that. But certainly in American domestic policy, our policies are determined essentially by the highest bidder. That's why we pay the most for our health care in the world, and we get the worst outcomes in the world.
But however, in Iran, earlier this year, disappeared bodies, mass burials, 20 to 30,000 dead. There were many testimony from medics, graveyard staff that revealed huge state effort to conceal systematic killing of protesters in Iran.
Right. I mean, you could. I don't believe the numbers were that high. I'll go with what the U.S. funded Human Rights Network for Iran has at about 7,500 verified deaths, which is still an enormous amount of people killed, right? So and the Iranian government itself says more than 3,000 people were killed. But, I mean, certainly the argument you can make for engaging in warfare then to protect the human rights of a country, well, of the people in the country, well, why do you choose Iran? Why are you not doing the same for the Saudis? Why are you not doing the same in Bahrain, where America has its naval headquarters in the Middle East, where the Fifth Fleet is headquartered? In Bahrain in 2011, you had a brutal suppression of the Shia majority protesters in Bahrain. I mean, essentially, you have the United States propping up Arab monarchies for decades now. And this is a policy that essentially Franklin Delano Roosevelt put into place with the Saudis in the 1940s. When you look at the numbers of who the United States, when you look statistically or look at the numbers, who the United States supports around the world, it's the United States, according to, there's an organization called Freedom House. It's funded by the United States government. And it puts out every year a list of which countries are free and which countries are not free. If you use the Freedom House list of which countries are not free, again, an organization funded by the U.S. government, you'll find that the United States provides military assistance to 3/4 of the countries on the planet that Freedom House says are not free, right? I mean, you could say the same too in the United States right now. There's a lot of concern for LGBTQ rights in Iran, and I certainly share that. And look, I just probably have to make the caveat, I'm not a fan of the Iranian government. It determines that there's a class of people out there who are called enemies of God. That's not my thing. I would never support a government like that, and I'd probably be very much against the government of Iran if I was Iranian. But I'm not. I'm American, you know. So, but the reality is that Iran has the death penalty for homosexuality on its books. There are 12 countries around the world that have such a death penalty for homosexuality. The United States provides military assistance to 10 of those 12 countries. So what you have then is you don't have an American foreign policy that is based upon principle. It's not based upon any degree of human rights, any degree of objective concern for the well-being of other people. It's predicated or it's advanced by other interests. And so what you have then is the concern for the rights of Iranians, just as we supposedly were concerned about the rights of Afghan women, that we were going to bring democracy to the Iraqis, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Pick whichever example you want to use here, is a canard. It's false. And you could see that in the hypocrisy of how the United States chooses to intervene, who it chooses to intervene with. I mean, we could go around the country and point out all these things. So it really is pretty hypocritical, and I don't think many people take it seriously. It's being used so often that has lost really any type of, and I will say too, one thing, Constantine, that is one thing that is a bit of a relief about this administration. For all that I can criticize it for, and all the criticism I'll throw Donald Trump's way, at least he's honest. You know, when he talked about Venezuela, he didn't talk about democracy. He didn't talk about human rights. He said it's about the oil, right? And the same thing here too with Iran. He doesn't care about democracy. He said so. He doesn't. So I think at least that's refreshing. That with this administration, at least, we don't have to battle through those lies that it's somehow we are bombing these people to free them. Yeah, no, I mean, yes.
I see. So finally, what needs to happen now to reach a ceasefire, and who actually holds, how to say, the cards, the leverage to make that happen?
Yeah, the initiative here. I think the Iranians do. And I mentioned before that Donald Trump could, because it's in his nature to change his mind, something that makes him very different than his predecessors. You compare him to George W. Bush, especially in that way. He could be right now saying the war's over, we won. That doesn't mean the Iranians are going to agree to that. The Iranians said over and over again, particularly since the end of last June's 12-day war, that the next round of warfare, that the next conflict would be a determinative one, that it would be total, and it would end with a resolution. And there's no reason to doubt the Iranians about that. And I think what their goal is deterrence. It is to create the conditions in the Middle East so that this war cannot happen again. I don't think the Iranians are so foolish to think that there's going to be an interval of more than 3 or 4 years, possibly, but to at least create the conditions so that some degree of space is created to separate them or deter, I shouldn't say separate, but to deter the Israelis and the Americans from doing this again in the short or midterm. The Iranians, too, I think, are looking to create conditions that have long-term transformative effects as well. Whether this is trying to separate the Gulf states from the United States, which, as we're discussing, Israel hit Iran's natural gas facilities today, and just right before we started talking, we saw that Iran hit the Qatari fields. So this type of damage and how the Gulf monarchies are going to respond, we don't know. But, the idea of separating the United States from its allies in the region, as well and to continuing a process worldwide, globally, of finding alternatives to the American empire, of giving countries off-ramps to get out from underneath the wings of the American empire, if you will. You've seen this through organizations like BRICS. What's one of the demands for the Iranians for ships to pass through the Straits of Hormuz right now is, you can't be a U.S. or an Israeli or an allied ship. But if you are not allied with the United States and you want to pay in yuan,
Yes.
then you can pass through.
Then you can pass.
So, right, you mean even like in their political objectives, there are long-term political objectives here about a radical transformation of the world order, of the world system. I mean, they've got this de-dollarization aspect baked into their control of the Straits of Hormuz, and so I think, for the Iranians, it will be this issue of establishing deterrence, of creating new world order conditions, if you will, firmly entrenching the multipolar world. I mean, we're in the multipolar world already, but this war, I think, will be the point at which the history books say, okay, here's the clean break with the American empire's order and the multipolar order, this war here in 2026. And so the Iranians, though, I think for them, maybe I should have just said this because it would have been a lot shorter. But the idea is there's what protects their sovereignty, what establishes their sovereignty, and I don't think they stop this war until they feel their sovereignty is fully protected.
MATYU HO, much appreciated, and good to have you on the program. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Costin.
Thank you.